Happy 80th birthday, Dad. I hope you'll be happy here. Those were the words from my daughter Emily as she left my suitcases at the door of the nursing home. 80 years of life. And this was my goodbye. My name is Edward Miller. I'm 80 years old, but my mind still works perfectly. And right now, standing here at the entrance of this place, I feel only one thing. Rage. A lot of rage. So do this. Listen to this story until the end. And also share this story with anyone who needs to hear it. Then tell me what part of it truly touched your heart. And from what city are you listening to me from? An hour ago, I was at home waiting for my family to come and wish me a happy birthday. It was my birthday, 80 years, an important milestone for any man. But instead of hugs and cake, what I got were 2 suitcases and an ultimatum. You can't live alone anymore, Dad, Emily told me without even looking me in the eye. We found this perfect place for you. Perfect place. As if I were an animal that needed to be caged. What if I don't want to come, I asked, even though I already knew my opinion didn't matter at all. It's not an option, Dad. It's already decided. Decided. Without asking me, without consulting me. As if my 80 years of life didn't give me the right to decide my own destiny. The taxi arrived. Because of course she didn't even bother to bring me in her own car. A taxi. As if I were a complete stranger. During the whole ride, I kept thinking, how did we get here? How could my own daughter do this to me? But I was also thinking about something else. Something she didn't know. Something she was going to find out very soon. Now I'm here standing in front of this nursing home, Serene Meadows, with my 2 suitcases and a heart full of disappointment. A nice place, I have to admit. Everything is clean, manicured gardens, bright walls, the kind of place where people deposit their problems so they can sleep peacefully. A young nurse came to greet me with that fake smile they all have here. Mr. Edward Miller, she asked, checking a list. That's me, I answered dryly. Perfect. Come with me, please. We'll process your admission, and then we'll take you to see your room. Room. What an elegant way to say jail cell. We walked down the hallway and I saw other old folks sitting in chairs. Some watching TV, others just staring into space. This is going to be my future. Sitting in a chair waiting for someone to visit me, knowing they probably will never come this way, Mr. Miller, the nurse said, guiding me to an office. First, we need to do some paperwork. Then you'll meet the director. Director? Why do I need to meet the director? So he can explain the rules of the prison where I'm going to spend my last years. We entered a small room with forms and more forms, as if my entire life could be summed up in papers and signatures. Your room is 247, she said, handing me a small key. 2nd floor garden view. It's very peaceful. Peaceful. Of course it's going to be peaceful. It's the place where they put old people so they don't bother anyone anymore. Is there anything else I need to know, I asked, because I wanted to get this over with. Well, in about an hour, the director will want to meet you personally. It's standard protocol for all new residents. Protocol. Everything here is protocol, as if we were numbers instead of people. Perfect, I lied. I'll be waiting. The nurse took me to my room, small but clean. A bed, a closet, a table, a chair. 80 years of life summarized in basic furniture. I put my suitcases on the bed and sat in the only chair in the room. Through the window, I could see the garden she mentioned. Pretty, yes. But the bars on all the windows reminded me that this wasn't my home. It was my prison. I thought about Emily at that moment. She was probably already home, relieved to have solved the problem of her old dad. Maybe even celebrating. We don't have to worry about him anymore. But she didn't know one important thing. Something I never told her. Something that would soon change everything. Because there are things in life, my friend, that people do thinking they're very smart. Decisions they make without knowing all the consequences. And my dear daughter Emily had just made the most stupid decision of her life. In 1 hour, when the director of this place comes to meet me, everything will become very clear. And then, then she's going to find out what it really means to make a mistake. An hour later, there was a knock on my door. 3 soft, polite knocks. Like everything in this place, even the knocks had a protocol. "Mr. Miller, may we come in?" It was the voice of the same nurse from before, but now she was with someone else. "Come in," I answered without getting up from my chair. At 80 years old, I no longer have to stand up to greet anyone. The door opened, and the nurse came in, followed by a man in his 50s, well-dressed, with a manager's face. Navy blue suit, perfect tie, professional smile. The typical guy who runs these places as if they were luxury hotels. "Mr. Miller, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Smith, the director of Serene Meadows," the nurse said, with that sweet voice they use for the elderly. The man Smith approached with his hand extended. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Miller. I hope you feel comfortable in your new home." Home. What a deceitful word. I shook his hand without much enthusiasm. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Smith. Please have a seat," I said, pointing to the only other chair in the room. The nurse stood by the door like a guard. Smith sat down and took out a folder. "Well, Mr. Miller, I wanted to meet you personally and explain a bit about how we operate here at Serene Meadows." "I'm all ears," I replied, though what I really wanted was for him to leave. "You see, we pride ourselves on providing the best possible care for our residents. We have recreational activities, physical therapy, a doctor on call 24 hours, and nutritious meals." While he delivered his rehearsed speech, I observed him. There was something familiar about this man, but I couldn't place what it was. His face, his way of speaking, something rang a bell. "And we also organize family events, so you can maintain contact with your loved ones," Smith continued. "Loved ones? What an irony. Family events?" I asked. "Like what?" "Well, we celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, special days. We always invite the families to come and—" "My birthday was today," I interrupted him. 80 years. Do you see any family here celebrating with me?" Smith became uncomfortable. He shuffled some papers in his folder. "Ah, yes. I see that today is your birthday. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. I'm sure your family—" "My family dropped me off here like an abandoned dog," I said directly. "So we'd better talk about other things." The silence in the room became heavy. The nurse stared at the floor. Smith cleared his throat and continued looking at his papers. "Well, I also wanted to talk to you about the payments. I see here that your daughter has already covered the first month, but we need to discuss the following ones." "How much does it cost to be here?" I asked. "It's $8,000 a month, Mr. Miller. That includes room, food, medical care, and all activities." $8,000. Interesting. "And what if I can't pay?" I asked, curious to see what he would say. "Well, in those cases, we work with the families to find alternatives. We have some assistance programs, but the reality is that if there's no way to cover the costs, we would have to, well, help the family find other options." Other options. What an elegant way of saying, "we'll kick you out on the street." "I understand," I said. "And how long have you worked here, Mr. Smith?" "I've been at Serene Meadows for 15 years, Mr. Miller. I started as an administrator and was appointed director 5 years ago. 15 years. That explained why his face seemed familiar. And do you like your job? I asked. Very much. It's very rewarding to be able to help people like you have a dignified and comfortable old age. Dignified old age. With families that abandon them and pay for them as if they were pets in a kennel. You know what, Mr. Smith, I have a question that I'm very curious about. Of course, go ahead. Who owns this place? Smith seemed surprised by the question. Well, it's a private company. The owner well, he's a very successful man in the construction business. He owns several homes like this one. What's his name? The owner, Smith looked uncomfortable. I'm not sure that information is it a secret? I asked with a smile he didn't understand. No, it's not a secret. His name is Edward Miller. Mr. Edward Miller. The nurse kept looking at the floor, oblivious to what had just happened. But Smith looked at my papers again. Then he looked at me, then back at the papers. Excuse me, he said slowly. Could you repeat your full name for me? Edward Miller, I answered calmly. Mr. Edward Miller. I watched the color drain from his face. His hands began to tremble slightly as he reviewed the papers with more attention. Edward Miller, he repeated, as if he couldn't believe what he was reading. The man himself, I confirmed. Smith shot up from his chair as if he had seen a ghost. The folder fell to the floor and papers scattered across the room. My God, he mumbled. I'm the owner of this place, I finished the sentence for him. And I'm also the old burden that my own daughter just abandoned here, paying $8,000 a month for the privilege. The nurse looked up confused. Smith stood there paralyzed, as if his brain couldn't process what he had just heard. Mr. Miller, he stammered. I didn't know. Nobody told me. How is this possible? It's very possible, I said slowly, getting up from my chair. My dear daughter Emily decided it was time to get rid of the annoying old man. What she didn't know is that the annoying old man happens to be her boss, and yours too. Smith quickly bent down to pick up the papers, his hands visibly shaking. Mr. Miller, I need to call. You don't need to call anyone yet, I interrupted. First, you and I are going to have a very interesting conversation about how my business is run. Smith was still on the floor gathering the papers with trembling hands. The nurse looked between us, not understanding a thing that was happening. Miss, I said to the nurse, could you leave Mr. Smith and me alone? We have matters to discuss. Yes, of course, Mr. Miller. She responded quickly and left the room, closing the door behind her. Smith finished collecting the papers and stood there like a scolded child awaiting punishment. Sit down, Smith, I ordered. It was no longer the director speaking to a resident. Now it was the employee facing his employer. He sat on the edge of the chair, nervous. Mr. Miller, I swear I didn't know that you... Nobody informed me that... Calm down, I interrupted. Nobody informed you because nobody knew. My own daughter doesn't know who I really am. Smith looked at me confused. She doesn't know. To her, I'm just an annoying old man who worked his whole life without achieving anything important. A burden to be disposed of. But Mr. Miller, you built this place. You employ more than 150 people. Yes, Smith. And apparently my daughter considers me so unimportant that she's paying $8,000 a month for me to live on my own property. Smith ran a hand over his face. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable, I repeated. You know what's unbelievable, Smith, that my own flesh and blood brought me here as if I were trash to be thrown away. I got up and walked to the window. The garden looked nice from here. I had invested a lot of money to make this place comfortable, dignified. I never thought I'd end up as a resident of my own creation. Tell me something, Smith, I continued without turning around. How do you see the relatives who bring their family members here? How do I see them? Yes. What do you think of them? Smith hesitated before answering. Well, I understand it's a difficult decision for the families. Many times they have no other choice. Don't lie to me, Smith. We're alone, tell me the truth. I heard him shift uncomfortably in his chair. The truth is, many times I see families who could care for their parents at home, but they prefer to bring them here because it's more convenient for them. And what do you feel when you see that? It makes me sad, Mr. Miller, because I see these seniors waiting for visits that never come, waiting for calls that never happen. I turned to look at him. And what do you feel now, knowing that I am one of those seniors? Smith looked down. I feel terrible. You've given us jobs, you've built this place to help others and your own family. My own family treats me like a burden, I finished for him. Yes, he mumbled. I returned to my chair and sat across from him. Tell me, Smith, who else here knows my story? Who else knows about my businesses? Well, the head administrator, Mrs. Roberts, knows you're the owner. Some of the doctors do too. But most of the staff doesn't know who you are specifically. Perfect. And I want it to stay that way for now. For now. Yes, Smith, because we're going to conduct a little experiment. Smith looked at me with curiosity and nervousness. What kind of experiment? We're going to see what happens when my dear daughter Emily comes to visit me. Because she will come. You know why? No, sir. Because her guilt won't leave her alone. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she will come. And when she comes, I want to see how she behaves, how she treats me, what she says to me. And after that, I smiled. A smile that Smith had probably never seen because it wasn't the smile of a sweet grandfather. It was the smile of a man who had built an empire by being smart, and when necessary, by being tough. After that, Smith, my daughter, is going to learn a lesson she will never forget. Now, Mr. Miller, Smith looked worried. I hope you're not planning on doing something you might regret later. Regret it? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Smith, do you have children? Yes, sir, 2. Do you love them? With all my heart. And do they love you? I think so. Would you do anything for them? Without hesitation. So would I, Smith. I did everything for Emily. I worked like an animal. I sacrificed my comfort, my time, my money, all so she could have a better life. I stood up again and walked toward the door. And you know what my mistake was, Smith? No, sir. My mistake was believing that the love I gave her would be returned. My mistake was thinking that the sacrifices I made for her meant something to her. But Mr. Miller, but now I get it, Smith. Now I know exactly who my daughter is. And when someone shows you who they really are, you have to believe them. I opened the door to the room. For now, I want this handled with absolute normalcy. I'm just another resident. I pay my $8,000 a month like everyone else. But sir, that's ridiculous. You can't pay to live on your own property. Of course I can, Smith, and I'm going to, because I want my daughter to feel very comfortable with her decision. I want her to feel very smart for having solved the problem of her old dad. Smith stood up too. And then when she's very sure she did the right thing, when she's very settled in her new life without the burden of her father. Then I'm going to teach her what it really costs to abandon the person who gave you everything. What are you going to do? I walked out of the room and down the hall. Smith followed me. I'm going to get Justice Smith, and I assure you that when I'm done, my dear daughter Emily will understand the true meaning of consequences. We reached the common area where some residents were watching television. I sat in one of the chairs, just another grandfather abandoned by his family. Now leave Smith, and remember to everyone here, I'm just Mr. Miller, the new resident from room 247. Smith walked away, but before he left, he turned around one last time. Mr. Miller, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Don't you think maybe your daughter will regret it? That maybe she'll come and ask for your forgiveness? I looked him directly in the eyes. Smith, there are things in life that are unforgivable, and abandoning your father on his 80th birthday is one of them. 5 days had passed since I arrived at Serene Meadows. 5 days living like an ordinary resident, eating in the dining hall with the other old folks, participating in the activities, pretending to be what my daughter thinks I am. A useless old man with no money or power. And let me tell you something, my friend. Those 5 days taught me more about human nature than I had learned in 80 years. At breakfast on the first day, I sat with Philip, a 75-year-old man who had been here for 3 years. His family visits him once a month, if that. First time in a place like this? He asked me while sipping his watery coffee. Yes, I replied. My daughter brought me. Ah, he said, nodding, as if he understood perfectly. Mine too. Said it was for my own good. And what do you think? I think it was for her own good, not mine, he answered with a bitter smile. It's easier to pay $8,000 than to deal with an old dad. $8,000. My own daughter paying my own money to keep me away from her. In occupational therapy, I met Linda, an 82-year-old woman with a story that broke my heart. Her only son had brought her here after selling the house where she lived. He needed the money for his business, she explained as we did puzzles. He said he'd take me to live with him later. That was 2 years ago. And he's never come. At first, he came every 2 weeks, then once a month. Now, the last time I saw him was last Christmas. Every story I heard was worse than the last. Families who promised to visit and never showed up. Children who took their parents' properties and sent them to nursing homes. Grandchildren who didn't even know their grandparents were alive. On the third day during lunchtime, I realized something that filled me with a cold, calculated rage. I had built this place thinking I was giving dignity to abandoned elders. I had put my heart into every detail. The food, the rooms, the activities, the trained staff. I thought I was creating a sanctuary for people who had no other choice. But the reality was different. This place had become a convenience dumpster for families who didn't want to deal with their responsibilities. And now I was part of that trash. On the fourth day, Smith came to see me in the afternoon. He sat next to me in the garden where I was reading a newspaper. "How are you feeling, Mr. Miller?" he asked in a low voice. "Like I'm living in a very revealing social experiment," I answered without looking up from the paper. "Have you thought about what you're going to do?" "All the time, Smith. All the time." "May I ask what—" I folded the newspaper and looked at him directly. "Tell me, Smith, how many of these residents have families that could take care of them at home?" Smith looked uncomfortable. "Well, a high percentage." "What percentage?" "Maybe 70%. 70%, I repeated. 70% of the people here don't need to be here. They're here because their families consider them inconvenient. Yes, Smith admitted. Do you know what that means, Smith? What does it mean? It means that I, without knowing it, built the perfect place for families to get rid of their problems with a clear conscience. Smith didn't answer. What could he say? My daughter is paying $8,000 a month to get rid of me, I continued. And she probably feels very generous for doing it. Very responsible. A very good daughter. Mr. Miller. No, Smith let me finish. During these 5 days I have seen the reality of what I created. And I have made a very important decision. Which is, I stood up from the bench where we were sitting. I'm going to tear it all down. Smith was speechless. What? You're going to close Serene Meadows, Smith? You're going to close this place and the other 2 homes as well? But Mr. Miller, there are people who really need. The people who really need it will be relocated to appropriate places. But this business of family convenience is going to end. Smith stood up, too clearly agitated. And the staff, the jobs, the staff will be generously compensated. You too. But this experiment is over. Why? Because I realized something, Smith. My mistake wasn't just raising an ungrateful daughter. My mistake was creating the perfect infrastructure for her and thousands of people like her to get rid of their parents without feeling guilty. I walked towards my room, but stopped before entering. Do you know what the saddest part of all this is, Smith? No, sir. That when my daughter finds out I destroyed the place where she abandoned me, she's going to understand that her useless dad had more power than she ever imagined. She's going to understand that the old burden she discarded was actually the person who controlled her destiny. And what's going to happen then? I smiled, but it wasn't a smile of happiness. It was the smile of a man who had made a decision he would never regret. Then Smith, my dear daughter, is going to live with the consequences of having abandoned the man who gave her everything. And there will be no second chance. There will be no forgiveness. There will be no reconciliation. But Mr. Miller, she's your daughter. She was my daughter, I corrected him. The day she abandoned me on my birthday, she stopped being my daughter. Now she's just a stranger who made the most expensive mistake of her life. I entered my room and closed the door. It was time to start making calls. It was time to set my plan in motion. Because there are things in life that are unforgivable, my friend. And there are people who have to learn that every action has a consequence. My dear Emily was about to receive the most expensive education of her entire life. That night after dinner, I locked myself in my room and took out my cell phone. A brand new iPhone that Emily had seen 1,000 times, but she thought I didn't know how to use it well, because old folks don't understand technology. How wrong she was. The first call was to my lawyer, Mr. Harris, a man who had worked with me for 15 years and knew exactly how to handle my affairs. Good evening, Mr. Miller, he answered on the second ring. How are you? Very well, Harris. I need you to come see me early tomorrow morning. I have important decisions to make. Of course, where should I meet you, at the office? No, I'm at Serene Meadows, the nursing home on the north side of the city. There was a silence on the other end. At the nursing home. Are you all right? Did something happen? I'm perfectly fine, Harris. It's a long story that I'll tell you tomorrow, but I need you to bring all the legal documents for my properties and businesses. Mr. Miller, you're worrying me. Are you sure everything is okay? Everything is better than ever, Harris. I'm finally seeing things with total clarity. After hanging up with Harris, I dialed my accountant's number, Mr. Ramsey. Mr. Miller, what a surprise to hear from you so late, he said. Ramsey, I need you to prepare a complete report of all my assets for me tomorrow morning. Properties, bank accounts, investments, everything. Is there a problem, Mr. Miller? No problem. I'm just going to make some important changes to my estate. Changes what kind? The kind that are going to change many lives, Ramsey. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Serene Meadows. The third call was the most important. To my general construction manager, Mr. Morgan. Boss, how are you? He answered with his usual respect. Very well, Morgan. Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is very important. Tell me, boss. First thing tomorrow morning, I want you to suspend all ongoing projects. All of them. All of them, but boss, we have projects worth millions of dollars under construction. All of them, Morgan. And I want you to prepare a complete inventory of all machinery, equipment, and materials. Mr. Miller, can I ask what's happening? What's happening, Morgan, is that I'm going to completely liquidate the construction business. Another silence. Liquidate everything. Everything. Every machine, every contract, every property related to construction. It's all going to be sold. But boss, that's a lifetime's work. Exactly, Morgan. It's a lifetime's work that someone very close to me decided was worthless. I don't understand. You will soon, Morgan. See you tomorrow at 11. After those calls, I sat on the edge of the bed thinking about what I had just set in motion. It wasn't just the destruction of my businesses. It was the destruction of everything I had built to give my family a better life. But there was one more call I had to make. The hardest one of all. I dialed the number of Michael, my eldest son. The one who lived in Denver with his wife and 2 kids. The one who had always been more responsible than Emily, but who also had done nothing to stop them from sending me to a nursing home. Dad, he answered, clearly surprised. How are you? Emily told me you're settled in at the nursing home. Yes, Michael, I'm settled in. And how are you feeling? Is the place comfortable? Very comfortable, son. Your sister chose an excellent place to get rid of me. Dad, it's not about getting rid of you. It's just what, Michael? It's just that, well, you know that Emily and I have our responsibilities, our jobs, our families. I understand perfectly, son. You do. I knew you would understand. You've always been very understanding. I am very understanding, Michael. So understanding that I've made a very important decision. What decision? I've decided that you two are right. That I'm a burden. That I'm a load. That I'm no good for anything anymore. Dad, we never said that. You don't have to say it, Michael. Actions speak louder than words. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that tomorrow I'm going to start liquidating everything I own. Liquidating what? Everything, Michael. The businesses, the properties, the bank accounts. Everything. I heard him move on the other end, as if he had shot up. You're crazy. Why would you do that? Because you're right. I'm a useless old man who's no good for anything anymore. So I'm going to act like one. Dad, wait. You can't do that. That money, those properties, they're our future. Our future? I laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. Michael, when you and your sister decided that I no longer had a place in your lives, you also decided that you no longer had a place in my estate. What are you going to do with the money? I'm going to donate it, all of it, to organizations that truly help seniors abandoned by their families. You can't do that. Of course I can, Michael. It's my money. They're my properties. It's my decision. But Dad, we are your family. You were my family, until a week ago when you decided it was more convenient to pay a nursing home to take care of me. Dad, please, we can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, Michael. You've already spoken. You've already decided. Now I've decided too. Wait, don't hang up. When are you going to do this? I've already started, son. Tomorrow morning I begin with the legal paperwork. I have to talk to Emily. Talk to whoever you want, Michael, but the decisions have been made. Dad, please. Good night, Michael. Give my regards to your wife and the kids. Tell them their grandfather loves them even though they didn't have time to say goodbye to him. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. I lay down on that small bed in the nursing home, in that room that cost me $8,000 a month of my own money. And for the first time in a week, I smiled. Because tomorrow, the most interesting part of this story was going to begin. Tomorrow, my dear family was going to discover that the old burden they had abandoned had the power to change their lives forever. And it wasn't going to be a change for the better. At 6 in the morning the next day, my phone started vibrating like crazy. Call after call after call. Emily, Michael, Emily's husband, even my daughter-in-law from Denver. But I had the phone on silent and didn't answer a single one. At 7, I went down to the dining hall like any normal resident. I got my coffee and toast. I sat at my usual table next to Philip and pretended to read the newspaper. Everything all right, Edward? Philip asked me. You seem very calm today. Very well, Philip. It's a beautiful day to start over. At 8, Smith arrived, clearly agitated. He approached my table with a worried look. Mr. Miller, can we talk for a moment? Of course, Smith. But right here, I have no secrets. It's just, well, your daughter has been calling the front desk since 6 this morning. She says it's urgent that she speak with you. Oh, really? I replied, taking a sip of coffee. And what did they tell her? We told her you were having breakfast and that mealtimes could not be interrupted. Very good, Smith. Those are the rules, aren't they? Yes, but she says it's a family emergency. A family emergency, I repeated, and Philip looked at me curiously. You know what's funny, Smith? A week ago, my 80th birthday wasn't important to my family, but now they have an emergency. Smith looked increasingly uncomfortable. Mr. Miller, perhaps you should... I shouldn't do anything, Smith. I'm just another resident. The rules apply equally to everyone, right? At 9, my legal advisors arrived. Mr. Harris and Mr. Ramsey entered the home, and Smith led them to a small meeting room on the first floor. Good morning, Mr. Miller. Harris greeted me with a concerned look. Can you explain what's happening? Sit down, gentlemen. I'm going to tell you a very interesting story. For the next 30 minutes, I explained everything from being abandoned on my birthday to my decision to liquidate my entire estate. Mr. Miller, said Ramsey when I finished, I understand your pain, but are you sure you want to do this? It's a very drastic decision. Very sure, Ramsey. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. And what will you live on? Asked Harris. I'll live on my pension like any normal old man. After all, that's what I am to my family, right? A normal old man who needs to be in a nursing home. But, Mr. Miller, no buts, Harris. I want you to prepare all the necessary documents. Sale of all properties, liquidation of all businesses, closure of all investment accounts. And the money? It will be divided among 3 charitable organizations that I will select. Organizations that truly help abandoned seniors. At 10, Mr. Morgan arrived. He looked completely confused and worried. Boss, can you explain what's happening? My supervisors have been calling me since early this morning asking why we stopped all the work. Because there is no more work, Morgan. The business is over. But boss, we have contracts to fulfill, employees who depend on us. The employees will receive a very generous severance package. The contracts will be transferred to other companies. Everything will be done correctly. But why? Because I decided I no longer want to be in the business of building things for a family that doesn't value me. While I was talking with Morgan, Smith nervously entered the room. Mr. Miller, excuse the interruption, but your daughter is here. She arrived 10 minutes ago and is very upset. She's here? Harris asked, surprised. Yes, Smith replied. She's at the front desk demanding to see you immediately. Tell her I'm in a meeting and she'll have to wait, I replied calmly. But Mr. Miller, she says. Smith, who pays for my stay here? Well, she does. Exactly. She pays for me to be here as a resident. And we residents have schedules and rules. If she wants to see me, she can make an appointment like any normal visitor. Smith left and returned 5 minutes later. Mr. Miller, your daughter says she's not moving from there until you see her. Perfect. Let her stay there as long as she wants. I continued with my meetings all morning. At 12, when I left the meeting room, I saw Emily sitting at the reception desk. She looked desperate with red eyes and disheveled hair. I walked toward the dining hall as if I hadn't seen her. Dad, she shouted, standing up. Dad, I need to talk to you. I turned slowly as if I had just noticed she was there. Oh, hello, Emily. What a surprise to see you here. Dad, we have to talk. Michael told me what you're planning to do. Oh, yes. And what did Michael tell you? That you're going to sell everything, that you're going to give away all the money. Everyone at the reception was watching us. Other residents visiting family members, the nursing home staff. Oh, that, I said calmly. Yes, it's true. Is there a problem? Of course there's a problem. You can't do that. Why can't I do that, Emily? Why? Because it's our future. It's your children's inheritance. My inheritance, I laughed. Emily, a week ago you decided that I no longer had a place in your life. Why should your future have a place in my money? Dad, please, we can fix this. Fix what, Emily? Nothing is broken. Everything is working perfectly. It's not working. You're destroying everything out of spite. It's not spite, my dear daughter. It's justice. She came closer, lowering her voice. Dad, if it's about the nursing home, you can come back home. Everything can go back to how it was before. Like before. I looked her directly in the eyes. You mean like before, when I was a burden in your life? When I was a load you wanted to get rid of? I never said that. You didn't have to say it, Emily. You showed me when you abandoned me on my 80th birthday. It was for your own good. No, Emily. It was for your own good. And now this is for my own good too. Dad, please. I'm your daughter. You were my daughter, until the day you decided that your comfort was more important than my dignity. I saw her eyes fill with tears, but they were no longer the tears of my beloved little girl. They were the tears of a woman who had just realized she had made the most expensive mistake of her life. Is there nothing I can do? She asked in a very low voice. There is something you can do, Emily. What? You can live with the consequences of your decisions, just as I am living with mine. Emily stood there in the reception area for 3 more hours. From my second-floor window, I could see her pacing back and forth, talking on the phone, crying, begging Smith to convince me to talk to her again. But I didn't go down. I stayed in my room signing documents with my lawyers, sealing the fate of everything I had built over 60 years of work. At 4 p.m, Smith came up to see me. Mr. Miller, your daughter is still downstairs. She says she won't leave until you hear her out. Let her stay as long as she wants, Smith. It's a free country. Your son Michael has also arrived. He came from Denver. He looks very upset. Michael is here. Yes, sir. He arrived an hour ago. They're both at the reception. I looked out the window and sure enough, there was Michael with his sister, both of them talking in low voices, making desperate plans. Tell them I can see them in the living room in half an hour, but it will be a 15-minute conversation, no more. Smith went down, and I continued signing papers. Mr. Harris looked at me with concern. Mr. Miller, are you absolutely sure about this? Once you sign these documents, there's no turning back. Harris, for 60 years, I've worked to secure my children's future. A week ago, I discovered that my children simply want to secure even my present. It's time to close that chapter. I signed the last document. The complete liquidation of Miller Construction, the company I had built from scratch. 60 years of work turned into numbers on a piece of paper. At 4:30, I went down to the living room. Michael and Emily were waiting for me, sitting on the sofa like two scolded children. "Good afternoon," I said, sitting in the chair opposite them. "Dad," Michael began, "this has gotten out of control. We can find a solution that—" "Nothing is out of control, Michael. Everything is perfectly under control." "But you're destroying everything," Emily shouted. 60 years of work down the drain. Not down the drain, Emily. For you. Everything I built was for you. And if you decided that I'm worthless, then what I built for you is also worthless. That's not true, said Michael. We never said you were worthless. Didn't you? Then explain this to me, Michael. Why, when your sister decided to abandon me in a nursing home, did you do nothing to stop it? Michael fell silent. Explain to me why, when she told me they could no longer take care of me, you didn't say, Dad, come live with me in Denver. Michael looked down. Explain to me why neither of you thought that maybe your 80-year-old father deserved to spend his birthday with his family, instead of being dumped in a nursing home like an old piece of furniture. Dad, Emily mumbled, we can fix this. How, Emily? How are you going to fix the fact that you abandoned me when I needed you most? We'll get you out of here. You can come live with either of us. Oh, now you will? I laughed bitterly. Now that you've discovered the old burden had money, now you want me to live with you. It's not about the money, Michael yelled. No. Then explain to me why a week ago it was impossible for me to live with you, but now that you're going to lose your inheritance, it's suddenly become possible. They both remained silent, because they knew I was right. You know what's the saddest part of all this, I continued. It's not that you abandoned me. It's that you abandoned me so easily without even trying to find another solution. Dad, without even asking me what I wanted. Without even considering that maybe your father had feelings, had dignity, had a right to an opinion about his own destiny. Emily started crying again. Dad, I'm sorry, I regret it. It was a mistake. Yes, Emily, it was a mistake. The most expensive mistake of your life. But it can't be fixed, Michael asked desperately. Michael, do you think if I had gone to your house and told you, I don't want you as a son anymore, get out of my life, that it could be fixed with an apology? No. Do you think if I had taken your children, my grandchildren, and abandoned them somewhere, telling them I didn't need them anymore, that it could be fixed? No, Dad. Then why do you think what you did to me can be fixed? Emily got up from the sofa and knelt in front of my chair. Dad, please, I'm begging you, forgive me. It was stupid. It was selfish. It was whatever you want to call it, but forgive me. I looked at her there, kneeling, pleading. The little girl I had held in my arms, to whom I had given everything, whom I had loved more than my own life. And I felt nothing. Get up, Emily. Do you forgive me? Get up. She stood up, her eyes full of hope. Emily, there are things in life that cannot be undone, words that cannot be taken back, actions that cannot be erased. When you told me, "Happy 80th birthday, Dad. I hope you'll be happy here," and left me at the door of this nursing home as if I were garbage, in that moment you killed the father that I was to you. No. Yes, Emily. In that moment you decided I was no longer your father, that I was just a problem that needed to be solved. But I regret it. Your regret doesn't give me back the dignity you took from me. It doesn't give me back the birthday you stole from me. It doesn't give me back the love you trampled on. Michael approached too. Dad, we're family. We were family, Michael, until you decided I no longer fit in that family. So there's nothing we can do, Emily asked. Yes, there is something you can do. What? You can learn to live without the money you expected to inherit. You can learn to work for your own future instead of expecting your old father to hand it to you. And what are we to you now? Michael asked. I looked at both of them. My children. The reason I had worked my entire life. The people for whom I had sacrificed everything. You are going to be what I was to you last week, I said. You are going to be strangers. I stood up from the chair and walked to the door. The visit is over. You have to leave now. Visiting hours are over. Dad! Emily shouted. But I didn't turn around. They were no longer my children. They were just two people who had made a mistake that was going to cost them everything. A week later, from my second-floor window, I saw Emily arrive again. But this time, she didn't come alone. She came with her husband, with Michael's wife, and even with my 2 grandchildren. They brought the whole family. The heavy artillery for a last, desperate attempt. Smith came up to inform me. Mr. Miller, your entire family is downstairs. They say they need to speak with you urgently. The whole family, even the grandchildren. Yes, sir. The children, too. How low they had sunk, using the grandchildren as an emotional weapon. But nothing surprised me about them anymore. Tell them I'm not available. I'm busy with my legal affairs. Mr. Miller, the children are asking for their grandfather. Smith, those children have parents who decided their grandfather was no longer important. Let them talk to their parents about that. Smith went downstairs and I continued reviewing the financial papers. In a week, the news of the liquidation of Miller Construction had hit the media. Successful entrepreneur liquidates empire and donates fortune to charity. Read one of the headlines. 20 minutes later, Smith returned more nervous than before. Mr. Miller, your daughter says they won't leave until you come down to talk to them. And other residents are complaining because the children are crying in the reception area. Let them cry all they want, Smith. It's not my problem. But, sir. Smith, do you know the story of those children? No, sir. Those children are 2 and 5 years old. 2 weeks ago, on my 80th birthday, do you know what their parents did? No. They didn't bring them to see their grandfather. They didn't call me to wish me a happy birthday. They didn't organize any family celebration. But now that they need something from me now, they bring the grandchildren. Smith fell silent. Tell them they have 5 minutes to leave or I'm calling security to have them removed. Half an hour later, Smith came up again, this time accompanied by Mrs. Roberts, the head administrator. Mr. Miller, said Mrs. Roberts, I'm sorry to bother you, but the situation downstairs is becoming problematic. Your family refuses to leave, and they are disturbing the peace of the home. Disturbing the peace. Your daughter is shouting. Your daughter-in-law is crying. The children are running all over the place, and other residents are complaining. I stood up from my chair. Perfect. I'll go down and solve this. I went down to the first floor and saw them all crowded in the reception area. Emily's eyes were red and swollen. Michael looked defeated. The grandchildren were running around the chairs while their parents argued in low voices. "What are you doing here?" I asked in a cold voice. "Dad," said Emily, "we brought the children to see you. They miss you." "They miss me since when?" "Since always, Dad. They always ask about their grandfather." "That's a lie, Emily. Those children barely know me because you never brought them to see me before." The older grandchild, 5 years old, approached me. "Grandpa, why are you mad at my mommy?" I looked at him, an innocent child who was not at fault for anything. But I wasn't going to be manipulated through him either. "I'm not mad, son," I said gently. "I'm just sad because your mommy and your uncle made decisions that hurt your grandpa very much." "What decisions?" Emily quickly approached. "Come here, sweetie. Don't bother your grandpa." "He's not bothering me," I said. "But it's interesting that you're now worried about him bothering me, when 2 weeks ago you weren't worried about hurting me." "Dad, please don't talk about that in front of the children." "Why not, Emily? Are you ashamed for your children to know how you treated your own father?" Emily's husband, who had been quiet all this time, stepped forward. "Mr. Miller, with all due respect, I think this situation is getting out of control. Maybe we could find a solution that—" "A solution? What's your name?" "Richard, sir. I'm Emily's husband." "Richard, did you know your wife was going to bring me here on my birthday?" "Well, yes, sir. We discussed it as a family." "And what was your opinion?" Richard looked uncomfortable. "I thought that maybe it was for the best for everyone. For everyone, including me." "Well, we thought you would be more comfortable here with people your own age." "More comfortable? Abandoned by my family on my birthday." "It wasn't abandonment, sir. It was what Richard— It was a practical decision." "A practical decision," I repeated. "And what is this now, so a practical decision?" "This is— we are trying to fix things." "No, Richard. This is panic. This is desperation, because you realized that your practical decision is going to cost you millions of dollars." Michael's wife, who had been crying silently, also approached. "Mr. Miller, we live in Denver, We didn't know exactly what was happening. Michael told me everything when he got home that night." "And what do you think of what your sister-in-law did?" "I think that maybe it could have been handled differently." "Maybe." I laughed bitterly. "You know what I think? I think you're all here because Michael told you're going to lose a multi-million-dollar inheritance, not because you genuinely care about my well-being." "That's not true," Michael shouted. "No, then explain why in 2 years of marriage your wife has never shown any interest in my well-being before." Michael didn't know what to answer. "Explain why none of you offered for me to come live in Denver before you knew I was going to liquidate my estate." "Dad, Explain why these grandchildren of mine, who supposedly miss me so much, have only visited me 3 times in 2 years." The silence in the reception area became heavy. "You know what?" I continued. "At first I thought you were just selfish. Then I thought you were ungrateful. But now I realize you're something worse." "What are we?" Emily asked in a very low voice. "You're hypocrites. You are people who pretend to love when you need something, but who abandon when loving becomes inconvenient." "Dad, and the saddest part is that you brought these innocent children to witness your hypocrisy." I crouched down to be at eye level with the older grandson. "Son, did your mom explain why your grandpa lives here?" "She said you're sick." "I'm not sick, son. I'm here because your mommy decided she didn't want to take care of me anymore." "Dad," Emily shouted. "Is it true or not, Emily?" Emily remained silent. "And now," I said to the boy, Your mommy wants me to forgive her and give her back her inheritance. What's inheritance? It's money that parents leave to their children when they die. Are you going to die, Grandpa? We all die someday, son. But before I die, I decided to give all my money to people who really need help. And my mommy doesn't need help. Your mommy is a very capable person who can work for her own money. Emily approached and took the boy by the hand. Let's go, son. Aren't we going to see Grandpa anymore? The boy asked. Emily looked at me with a mixture of pain and hatred. No, son. We're not going to see Grandpa anymore. And that's how my own daughter confirmed what I already knew. That to them I was only worth my money. Without money there was no Grandpa. Without an inheritance there was no family. After they left, I sat in the reception area for another hour, watching through the window as life went on as normal outside the nursing home. Cars, passing people, walking families, who probably truly loved each other. And there I was. An 80-year-old man who had just confirmed that he had wasted 60 years of his life working for people who only wanted him for his money. Smith approached after a while. Mr. Miller, are you all right? He asked with genuine concern, something my own family hadn't shown. I'm perfect, Smith. I've never been better. For the first time in my life, I can see things exactly as they are, without the lies of family love. He sat next to me on the sofa, where my family had been just a few minutes ago. You don't regret anything? He asked. Do you regret firing an employee who was stealing from you? I replied. No, of course not. Then why would I regret firing a family that stole something much more valuable than money from me? They stole my dignity, my respect, my place in their lives. The next day, Mr. Harris arrived with the latest news on the liquidation. Mr. Miller, I have the final reports. Everything has been sold successfully. The properties, the company, the investments, everything. He sat in front of me with a folder full of papers. The total liquidated amount was $43 million. $43 million. A fortune I had built thinking about my children's future, which was now going to become real help for people who truly needed it. And the donations, I asked. They are already being processed. $21 million goes to the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors. Another $21 million to the Orphans Children's Home. And the remaining $1 million is for your personal expenses here at the home for the rest of your days. Perfect, Harris. And do my ex-children know this? Your daughter Emily has been calling my office every day. Yesterday, she threatened to sue me if I didn't give her information about the process. And what did you tell her? I told her the truth. That you are in full command of your mental faculties. That the decisions are completely legal. And that she has no right to claim anything. Good. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Miller. Your son Michael has also been looking for me. He says he wants to hire his own lawyers to stop the process. Can he do that? No, sir. Everything is already signed and executed. The money has already been transferred to the charitable foundations. That afternoon, while I was reading in the garden, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was the director of the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors, Mrs. Martin. A woman in her 50s with a genuine smile that I hadn't seen on the faces of my family in years. Mr. Miller, I came to thank you personally for your donation. With those $21 million, we'll be able to help thousands of seniors who are in situations similar to yours. She sat next to me on the garden bench. May I ask what motivated you to make such a generous donation? My own experience, Mrs. Martin. I discovered that when families don't want their elders, the elders need to create their own families. Your family abandoned you. My family taught me that family love only exists when there's money involved. No money, no love. No inheritance, no children. That must be very painful for you. At first, yes, but now it's liberating. Now I know exactly where I stand and who I can really count on. Mrs. Martin took some papers out of her bag. Mr. Miller, I have a proposal for you. Would you like to be the honorary chairman of our foundation? Your experience and your story could help many people in your situation. 3 days later, while I was reviewing the newspapers in the dining hall, I saw a news story that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Businessman liquidates fortune after being abandoned by his children. The headline read, "The article told the whole story. How I had built an empire working since I was young. How I had sacrificed everything for my children. How they had abandoned me on my 80th birthday. And how I had decided to donate my entire fortune to charitable organizations." The journalist had interviewed several people. Mr. Morgan had said, "Mr. Miller was the best boss you could have. He treated his employees like family. It's a shame his own family didn't treat him the same." Smith had commented, "He is a man of integrity who made a very brave decision. Many in his situation would have kept quiet for fear of losing their children, but he prioritized his dignity." Mrs. Martin from the foundation had declared, "Mr. Miller is an example of how you can turn pain into purpose. His donation will change the lives of thousands of people." But the most interesting part of the article was the end. The journalist had tried to contact Emily and Michael for their side of the story. Emily had hung up the phone when asked about the abandonment. Michael had said no comment and also hung up. Their own actions had left them with no defensible arguments. How could you publicly explain that you abandoned your 80-year-old father on his birthday and that now you're desperate because you're not going to inherit his money? There was no way to look good in that story because they were the real villains. That night, Smith came up to my room with news. "Mr. Miller, your daughter was here an hour ago. She didn't want to come up to see you, but she left a message." "What message?" "She said that you won, that she hopes you're happy with your revenge, and that she will never forgive you for destroying her grandchildren's future." I laughed, a long, liberating laugh. "Smith, do you know what's most ironic about that message?" "No, sir." "That she says she will never forgive me, when I was the one who decided not to forgive her. Even in her final farewell, she still believes she is the victim of this story." Smith said nothing, but I could see in his eyes that he understood perfectly. "And the thing about her grandchildren's future," I continued. "Those grandchildren she used as an emotional weapon to manipulate me. Now it turns out that I'm responsible for their future. Not their parents who can work and build their own legacy, but the grandfather they abandoned." "What will you do now, Mr. Miller?" "I'm going to live Smith. For the first time in 80 years, I'm going to live for myself. I'm going to use the time I have left to help other abandoned seniors, to be the chairman of that foundation, to make sure my money really does something good." "And you don't miss your family? Smith, do you miss people who betray you?" "No, sir. Neither do I, because they were never really my family. They were people who pretended to love me as long as it was convenient for them." 1 year later, I'm sitting in the same garden chair at Serene Meadows. But I am no longer the same man who arrived here abandoned on his birthday. Now I am the honorary chairman of the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors. And every day I receive letters from elders who have been helped with the money my ex-children hoped to inherit. Letters of gratitude that are worth more than all the fake "I love you dads" I heard for 60 years. Smith approaches with the day's newspaper. "Mr. Miller, there's another story about you." In the society section, there's a photo of me cutting the ribbon at a New Day Center for abandoned seniors. The headline says, "Edward Miller inaugurates 5th center funded by his foundation." It's the 5th center opened with my money in 1 year. 5 places where seniors who were treated like trash by their families now receive dignity, respect, and true love. Do you know what's most satisfying about this, Smith? I ask, as I fold the newspaper. That every dollar my children hope to spend on their luxuries is now turning into genuine smiles from people who really need help. This morning, a special letter arrived. It's from a 75-year-old woman in Austin whose daughter abandoned her in a nursing home after selling her house. Mr. Miller, the letter says, thanks to your foundation, I was able to return to my home and now receive the help needed to live with dignity. Your story taught me that not all children deserve parents, but all parents deserve respect. Those words touch me more deeply than any hug my own children ever gave me, because they come from someone who expects nothing from me except that I continue to be the person I chose to be. Philip, tablemate in the dining hall, told me yesterday that his daughter finally came to visit him after reading my story in the newspaper. Do you know what she told me, Edward? He said. She said that after reading what happened with you, she realized she was making the same mistake. And did you forgive her? I asked. I told her we could start over, but things had to be different. Philip got the chance to get his family back because his daughter recognized her mistake before it was too late. But my children lost that chance forever because when they had the opportunity to make amends, they only thought about the money they were going to lose. 3 months ago, Smith told me that Emily had come to the home asking for me, not to visit, but to find out if I had changed my mind about the donations. Did you tell her to ask me? I asked Smith. No, sir. She just wanted to know if you had left anything for her in a will. To the very end, only thinking about money. She didn't even pretend to miss me or to be sorry. She just wanted to know if there was anything left she could inherit. That question confirmed I had made the right decision. Last month, I received a legal notice. Michael had tried to sue the charitable foundations, claiming I wasn't in my right mind when I made the donations. The judge dismissed the lawsuit at the first hearing. Mr. Edward Miller, the judge said, according to my lawyer. He showed more sanity and sense in donating his estate than his children showed in abandoning him. Even the legal system recognized that they were the ones who were wrong. Yesterday I turned 81. This time it wasn't a day of abandonment and humiliation. It was a day of real celebration. The nursing home staff threw me a small party. Letters of gratitude arrived from seniors all over the country. And Mrs. Martin from the foundation came with a cake that said, "Thank you for teaching us that true family is chosen." For the first time in 81 years, my birthday was celebrated by people who genuinely appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. During the party, one of the nurses asked me, "Mr. Miller, do you ever regret what you did with your children?" "Would you regret putting someone who robbed you in jail?" I replied. "No, sir. My children robbed me of something more valuable than money. They robbed me of my place in the family that I built myself. Why would I regret punishing them for that?" The nurse nodded. "Besides," I continued, "what I did wasn't revenge, it was justice. Revenge would have been hurting them just to cause them pain. Justice was taking away something they didn't deserve and giving it to those who do." This morning, as I had my coffee in the garden, I thought about everything that had happened in this past year. I thought about Emily, probably working a job she once considered beneath her dignity now that she doesn't have a guaranteed inheritance to maintain her lifestyle. I thought about Michael explaining to his wife why they won't have the big house they had planned to buy with my money. I thought about my grandchildren growing up without knowing they had a grandfather who would have loved them unconditionally if their parents hadn't decided that money was more important than family relationships. But most of all, I thought about all the people who have been helped with those $43 million. Seniors who now have dignity, orphaned children who now have education and opportunities, families who learned from my story and decided not to make the same mistakes. My money is finally serving to build real love instead of maintaining a false one. Smith approaches again. Mr. Miller, another letter arrived for you. It's from a family in Phoenix. Mr. Miller, after reading your story, we decided to bring my father-in-law to live with us instead of sending him to a nursing home. Your example taught us that family is shown through actions, not words. I smile as I fold the letter. This is my true legacy. Not money that my children would have wasted on luxuries, but lessons that will last for generations. Families who will value their elders because they knew the story of the man who refused to tolerate abandonment. And that, my friend, is why I say it's never too late to get justice. Now you tell me, if it were you, would you have done the same in my place? And also tell me, from what city in this world are you listening? Because this story needs to be shared with anyone who needs to hear it.